Welcome back. This week we're going to go with a single hooked pattern of Tommy Lynch's Drunk and Disorderly. Probably not the most well-known of the D&D series, but there are a lot of folks out there, myself included, that like to fish these singles. A lot along the same lines as a cougar. You know, when it comes to me fishing single hook patterns, I should preface it that way. It's either a D&D cougar, you know, woolly sculpin, stacked blonde, somewhere along those lines. Those are pretty much the four that I go with. I'll throw the dink every once in a while. That's more of a trailer pattern for the spring, in my opinion. That's when I usually focus heavy on that one. Or the HT. I'll throw the HT minnow a good bit as far as the single hook pattern goes. But we'll go ahead and get into this one, and this should be a pretty quick video. Should be, no promises, but we'll go ahead and get right into this one. To start on this, I've got an Ahrex TP 650. This is the bent hook. Knoxville's not happy about something out there. This is the 26 degree bend Ahrex 650. Surprised the young one's not following suit and barking at something, but that's alright. Alright, so we're going to do just basically a white pattern today, but we're going to throw in some accent colors and just kind of spruce this up a little bit. But rather than doing just a straight white, we're gonna throw in some different colors here today. But the color combinations are entirely up to you. Whatever you guys decide you want to do, something that you like, something that you have confidence in. For me personally, it's the brown and yellow. That's the one that I gravitate to. But like I said, we're going to change this up today, give you some ideas on some different color combinations that you can use, and go from there. It's not going to be a two-toned head, which I really like doing. I like doing the two-toned on these D&Ds, but we're just going to take this. We've got an ample amount of flash. Look at any of the patterns that Tommy does. He has got a ton of flash in his patterns. So we're going to make sure that we have a ton in this one. This is just a Holo blend. I'll get this out of the way. This is a Holo blend. I get this from North 40. You can order them online from those guys. But this is a bunker blue, what they call it. And it just has a bunch of different colors in it. There's some yellows, some greens, some blue. Maybe if I look close, even some purple. But just a neat little color combination. I like using these better than the, you know, when I'm doing the D&Ds, when I'm doing Sid's Ragdollies, so on and so forth. I like something with just a mix of colors on the flash. Now, if I'm doing just like a straight marabou tail, I like to do the straight one color on the tails there. But I'm going to measure this out, and I should have done that beforehand. Measure this out. Length of the hook, maybe slightly longer. I'm going to take just a little bit more off of that. That was a little bit longer than I wanted it. So the length of the hook, I just measure it with my scissors. I mean, basically any more. After tying so many of these, I just eyeball them. But for reference purposes, I'm just going to measure out here. You can see I got the length of the hook right to where the bend starts on this hook, and then right to the eye. I'm going to take that out, and it may be just slightly longer. So I'm going to use that for my reference, and then we'll get into the overwing, or the mallard flank section here once we get closer to that. So I just want to cover this up a little bit, and now on the single, you can just go straight with the UV puller at this point. cradle going all over the place. You can go straight with the UV puller, but I honestly like just a little bit of rabbit before I start with the UV puller. So I'm going to go rabbit, UV, rabbit, and then that's going to make up the body of my fly. With the articulated ones, I mean that pattern's already there. There's progressions that you go. You use the rabbit, you go with the UV puller, and then once you put the articulation together on your front hook, you go with the rabbit for kind of a skirt, and then you go back to the UV puller, and then rabbit again. So I'm just going to give 2 quick wraps on this, and this is just a little bit of, this is a cross cut like I always use on these. This is a 2-tone hot pink and purple. Give you the look on that one. And then what this is going to do really, because I'm going to put the rabbit again here up front, hopefully this all marries, and then I'm going to have that UV puller to give me that little flash for the body. So when this thing kicks side to side, you're going to have that flash that you get when bait fish are swimming around and eating, or if they're injured, whatever it may be. You're going to be able to replicate that look that we're after here, that predatory fish are going to key in on. Now I'm going to take this silver UV, section that I like here. I can tell if I tie that in, it's just going to unravel on me. So we're going to take this silver UV and get that tied in. And work our way close to the front. We're going to go about 1/4 of an inch away from the bend of the hook. And then this is just going to be straight UV puller wraps right up to that portion, or right up to that point. Just kind of flare this out a little bit. Like 2 or 3 wraps, give it a nice pull. Really lash your fibers onto this hook. Go. Alright, so there's the UV. Now we're going to go back to the rabbit after I clean this up a little bit. I just want to take all of these fibers and then get them out of my way, have them going back to the bend of the hook. Just clean that up a little bit with a couple of thread wraps. And now you can see we've got that UV puller going over the back. Now what we're going to do is go back to the cross-cut rabbit, and I'm going to tie this in, and same thing, I'm going to get maybe 2 to 3 wraps on this, and that's going to be it. I'm not going to allow my material to enter the bend of that hook. That's the big thing that I want. I just want this 1, 2, and I'm going to stop there. I'm just going to do the 2 wraps. Peel this fiber back. Get a nice break in those materials, and then we'll trim this off. So now you can see, well, let me just peel this back a little bit more. I'm going to get a couple of thread wraps right over top of this, and now you're able to see you've got that nice transition to where this pink hits the pink on the first section of rabbit that we tied in. Now it's a nice seamless little transition all the way back, and my finger's the wrong way, I was looking at the monitor. Nice seamless transition all the way back, but you have that nice little flash in between, and it kind of marries into that back section that we tied with the blues and yellows and greens in there. So we'll get this out of the way, set that off to the side. Now what we're going to do is find a nice section, or a nice mallard flank here to lay right over the top. And I got lucky, and with the very first one I got one that I'm happy with. So now with the D&D, the original, the articulated, on the front hook the mallard flanks go down to the side like this and like this, and then on the back hook you have them laying over the top like so. What I'm going to do, and what I do with these ones when I tie them single, is I lay these over the top. I like it, it gives a little bit better of a profile in my opinion, but I'm kind of torn because I like the way that they look on the sides, but on the singles I go with just this one right over the top. So now I'm going to set this on there, make sure that your stem goes right down the center, make sure it's following that line on the hook. And we're going to go right over the top here. I'm going to leave this just short of the flash on the back. I'm going to bring my thumb over the top. I'm going to hold this down, give a couple of loose wraps. And then I'm going to really pinch down tight right at the tie-in point of this. Take the stem, I'm going to trim that off. Now I'm working right at the very bend. Right at the bend on this hook. It's kind of tough to see because I have a little dam of thread build up there and everything. But there's the bend that I'm after. This is all going to be wedged head, and then the rest of this is going to be collar on the back side. So now I'm going to transition. I'm going to get away from the 100 GSP and I'm going to switch over to the 200, which is what I like to work with. You know, on the D&Ds, on any of the wedged heads, the SIDs, ragdollies, white girls, you name it. Not so much really on the dungeons, because I'm not trying to, the dungeons, the cougars, I'm not trying to really pack a bunch of hair in one for the head. The dungeons and the cougars, I get away with doing the GSP 100. Let me flare that out a little bit so it looks better, because it's going to stay that way once it gets wet, of course. But now I'm just going to go with a straight white head on this one. I'm still debating whether I want to do a straight white or not. It's probably not going to look too good with the... yeah, I'll just go straight white on this one. It's probably not the best color combination that I could pick, but I think it'll turn out alright. Yeah, we'll stick with it. I'm not sold on it by any means, but we're just getting the recipe of the fly down. We're not looking for the best dressed, so to speak. So now I'm going to take a good chunk of deer hair. This is going to be my collar. You watch some of the guys, and I go back and forth on this one as well. You watch some of the folks that are really exceptional with these wedged heads. Some of them use the back section of this for a portion of the head. I've done it in a few videos in the past. I'm just going to go, and this is going to be strictly a collar. So I'm going to even up all of these tips, and then I'm going to trim this stuff off. Like I said, this is going to be strictly a collar. Right here. Get this measured out, and then I want to go between the point of the hook and the barb. That's where I'm going to measure this out. That's going to be all collar right there. So now we're just going to cut that off nice and square. I'll clean my bench up whenever I'm done filming because I just made a mess. And this is right on top of the bend of the hook. So I haven't really entered the bend of the hook yet. That's all going to be wedged head and gave that one a pretty good turn there. That's all going to be the wedged head portion of this. This is strictly collar, like I was saying. And the collar on this one, just like the Cougar, just like the Woolly Sculpin, the collar stabilizes this fly as it's going through the water, and it gives it that nice little wobble that you're after. So there we have that, and I'm just going to go right in front of that one. And because I'm not doing this one two-toned, it's going to be all a straight white head. I don't need to stack these. I like stacking the wedged heads better, but that's usually when I do the two tones. So I'm just going to take an obscene amount of deer hair, and I'm going to start forming this wedged head. And I'm going to spin this stuff. Normally, like I said, I stack them. Get that out of the way. And I'm probably only going to have room for 2 spins of deer hair on this. That stuff's getting a little bit out of control there. There we go. So now all I'm going to do is center this up, work with the most hollow portion of your deer hair. And I'm going to go 1, 2, and then my third wrap, I'm getting wrapped around a tag on my thumb here. I'm going to pull this tight and allow it to spin. And there we go. And I'm just going to work this stuff to the back. I'm going to really stack this deer hair in there tight, because you want the wedged head, you want it to form a nice solid compressed deer hair head. Unlike the Dungeon, unlike the Cougar, you want as many fibers in here as you can possibly get. So I'm going to pack this in here and then work my thread right to where I pushed everything back. That's going to give me one more little portion right there that I'm going to be able to put more deer hair in. Let's see here if I like this or not. I'm going to use probably 3/4 to a half of the amount that I used on the front, depending on how much hook section you have left to work with. If you go using too much deer hair, it'll get trapped on here and it won't give you a full spin. I'm thinking that I should be able to get a full one out of this, because I used just about the right amount here, I think. We'll soon find out. So there's your 1, your 2. See how it's starting to flare out? I'm not putting a ton of pressure on there. And then we'll give that a quick spin, and of course I didn't quite make it, so thought I had the right amount, but no worries, we'll fix that real quick. I didn't get quite the spin that I wanted on the bottom, so that's going to look a little bit sparse. We'll just clean that section out real quick. Now I'm going to use the same thread path that I used for that top section. Work things through, try not to trap a ton. And it really helps to work with a very small, very short amount of thread. That way you're not wrapping around and you're catching these fibers on the top. Shorten this thread up. You can see, I mean, I only have maybe an inch sitting there, and I probably should have used a little bit less, but if I would have done it right the first time and allowed that to spin using less deer hair, I wouldn't have to do that. But there's a good example of what not to do. So I guess. So now I'm going to peel all of this stuff back. I'm going to make these couple of wraps right in front. I'm going to run some thread through a cut I have on my thumb. And now I'm just going to peel all of these fibers back. I'm going to whip finish. Give it 1, 2, and then I'm going to do one more. There we go. Alright, so we have the collar, we have our wedged head built, everything's looking pretty good so far. We've got just a pile of deer hair all over the place. I'm going to make a lot more here in a second. I'm going to make a lot more of a mess here in a second. We'll get that out of the way and find my comb. Missing a bunch of teeth, but it still works. I'm going to brush this stuff out, and then we're going to start trimming the collar on this one, or start trimming the head. This is the process. When you do this, do not rush through this because you take all the time to tie the rest of the fly. You don't want to ruin this by rushing through this and making a bad wedged section on this head. This is what really makes this thing swim. So I'm just going to start, and I know it's tough to see because of the head's facing me, and I still don't have the second camera angle that like I've been talking about for months. We're getting there, I promise. Just a slow process. Now we're going to make this cut on here. I'm going to make the one on the top. I'm going to cut through this bottom section. I'm just going to push the blade right through there. It's looking pretty good. Push this blade right through. I'm going to get all of the excess, but don't push so far to where you're going to wind up cutting the rabbit behind it. Really nice to have overhead camera on this one. That's something that we're going to work on here eventually. That way you can see exactly what I'm seeing and not being in the dark and looking at the back end of my vise. So I'm going to turn this off to the side. We're going to start trimming our sides here, forming the wedge on this head. And what I always harp on this is don't try to form that shape on your very first cut. Take your time, just get the work on the outside of it. Leave yourself some stuff to work with. Leave yourself some material or some deer hair to work with, because if you go trying to make that perfect cut the very first time, what winds up happening is you get too aggressive, or at least in my case, I've done it a lot when I first started tying these. You get too aggressive and then you have nothing to work with, and then your head winds up lopsided and it's just not going to fish. So here's what I did. We'll spin this around. There's what I did on the head. Those are just the rough cuts right now. What I'm going to do now is spin this back around, and I'm going to really take some time and form this head to get it exactly how I want it. While I'm doing that, I'm going to try to talk to keep everybody entertained, but I don't know, sometimes talking and working on detailed portions of a fly can be difficult for me. Just getting the overall shape on this, getting everything how we want it. I used to be, and I can't lie, I still am really particular on how I trim these. I can take entirely too much time and make them look way too refined, honestly. But to be honest, I mean, as long as you get the overall shape on this down, the fly's going to swim and going to hunt how you want it to. The details are more of a personal preference, I guess. I still don't have them quite down how I want them, but we're getting there. But, like I was saying, you can get away with just getting the overall shape, throwing the eyes on there and calling it good, because the second this thing hits the water, the shape of the head doesn't really stay true the entire, especially after you grab a fish or two. The shape kind of gets a little distorted. But coming off the vise you want, I want it to look pretty, so I'm taking the extra time to do it. There we go. We're cleaning up the underneath side, and now I've got a few fibers back here that are just running into the collar. I want to clean those up a little bit. Everything looks pretty good there so far. Try not to run that into my finger and start bleeding. I'm going to call that good. I have a few that I can clean up slightly. Before I do this, I'm going to take just a little torch here, and I'm going to get rid of the hairs that are right around the eye. Smells lovely, I'm telling you. Alright. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Not entirely, but pretty happy. We'll take it. So there we go. You got the wedged head on that. I could probably spend some time trimming things up and making this a little more rounded on the front than what it actually is, but I'm going to leave that one be. That way I don't wind up with a 45-minute video on something that I said was going to be relatively quick. Last thing I'm going to do on this, I'm going to put some 5mm fire eyes from Flymen on here. Just some regular Loctite gel. Bring my scissors back here. Throw an eye on there. You can go a little bit bigger if you want. For some reason on these D&Ds, SIDS, whatever it may be, I like the 5mm eyes. I've done them with 7s. I wasn't too crazy about those. I didn't really like how it turned out, so I go back to the 5mm. Same thing on this side. I'm going to take and put this eye in. Use your scissors to press it down. That way your fingers don't go sticking to the fly. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I could have spent some more time trimming that up and making it a little bit more consistent throughout. But I think overall we're going to let that one slide. Now we'll just take some UV finish here. We're going to hit this. This is Loon Outdoors Thin. Just going to throw this right over the top here. Kind of spread that out some. Hit our sides. Go around the eye. And then on the underneath side as well, I've got a hair in there that doesn't belong, so I'm going to get rid of that. That looks like a dog hair is what that looks like. I don't know how I get those. Just get a nice coat, nice covering of this UV on there, and there we go. Get this out of the way. We're going to bring the torch in. We're going to hit this with the torch, just cure this UV a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty symmetrical. I could have done a little bit better, but pretty symmetrical. I'll take it. Definitely could have done a little bit better the more I look at it. It's alright. Alright, so I'll finish curing this one up, but there it is. There is the single version of Tommy Lynch's Drunk and Disorderly. Like I said, first time I ever tied that color combination. I kind of like the way that it turned out, actually. It looks pretty good. We'll take that out this weekend, hopefully, if work allows me to, and go out and fish that one a little bit, see how it does, see if we can't get into a couple of these browns on the Missouri. So, as always, if you guys have questions or comments on this one, I got a few hairs that are just all over the place there. If you have questions or comments on this fly, like I said, as always, leave them with me and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. But thanks for watching, and we'll catch you again next week.